Welcome to today's deep dive. I'm so glad you're joining us today because we are looking at something completely unique.
Yeah, it really is.
Usually, when you're trying to stay well informed, you're looking at major news outlets or peer-reviewed journals, maybe massive industry reports.
Right, the big stuff.
Exactly. But today, our source material is just a single, seemingly unassuming blog post. It was actually published today, March 9th, 2026, on a website called knm1.org. And the post itself is titled, Notes on Fishkeeping, Part 207, Switching to New Fish Pellet.
Which, it sounds incredibly niche at first glance.
It does.
Just a short journal entry about fish food. But the value of a source isn't always in those, broad sweeping declarations. Sometimes the most profound insights come from intensely focused micro-observations.
Yeah, and while the text of the specific post is brief, it's really just a couple of paragraphs from an author named Ang. The surrounding context of this blog is an absolute goldmine. So, the mission of our deep dive today is twofold. First, we are going to explore the specific biology and science behind this everyday fish keeping update. And then we're going to zoom way, way out to uncover the fascinating, hyper-detailed world of the blog's author. He describes himself as an old software plumber, and as you'll see, he has been meticulously documenting his life's data in a way that is just staggering. Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's start with the central narrative of the post itself.
Yeah.
The author, Ang, is giving us an update on a very practical, everyday problem in the world of aquariums. He has run out of the medium-sized red fish pellets that he's been using for, I think he says, many moons.
Right, many moons, yeah.
So he needs a substitute.
And we've all been in that situation with a pet. You run out of their usual food, you head to the store, and maybe they only have a slightly different version of the exact same brand. In Ang's case, he switches to a smaller version of those same red pellets, and he makes a perfectly logical assumption based on visual evidence. He sees the reddish color of the new, smaller pellets and deduces that they contain the exact same core ingredients as the old, medium-sized ones.
And that reddish color isn't just a marketing gimmick either. It's actually the key to the entire operation of this specific fish food. Ang points out in his post that these red fish pellets are typically packed with a specific compound called astaxanthin.
Astaxanthin. That sounds like, I don't know, an ingredient you'd find listed on the back of a high-end anti-aging skincare serum or something. What exactly is its biological function inside a fish tank?
It's a naturally occurring pigment, specifically a carotenoid.
Okay.
To break that down simply, a carotenoid is essentially nature's food coloring, but it's a structural part of an animal's diet. It is the exact same biological reason flamingos are pink.
Really?
Yeah. Flamingos aren't born that color. They turn pink because they eat a diet rich in shrimp and algae that are absolutely loaded with astaxanthin.
Oh, wow. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
So the fish are quite literally eating their own coloration.
Precisely. Ang notes in his post that this compound is often sourced from natural marine ingredients like krill and shrimp. But aquarists don't just use it for decoration. These natural sources of astaxanthin are incredibly high in protein, which is an absolute foundational requirement for the dietary health of these fish.
Right.
So the primary reason fish keepers actively seek out pellets with this specific ingredient, as Ang mentions, is to boost those vibrant red, pink, and orange hues in the tank while delivering a massive protein payload.
So on paper, this smaller pellet is a flawless substitute.
Flawless.
It delivers the high protein, it provides the astaxanthin from the krill and shrimp, and it's going to keep the fish looking vibrant and healthy. It's just
a little bit smaller.
Exactly. I love the analogy here because it is so universally recognizable. It reminds me of a toddler flat out refusing to eat a grilled cheese sandwich because you cut it into squares instead of triangles.
Yes, perfect analogy.
The ingredients are identical. The nutritional profile hasn't changed one bit. It's just a slightly different shape. And the author naturally assumes the fish won't make a fuss.
Which is a completely rational, analytical assumption for a human to make. He states that typically most fish will adapt to these minor changes without any fuss whatsoever. They're hungry, the food drops into the water, and they consume it. The biological imperative to eat usually overrides a minor change in presentation.
But biology doesn't always play by human rules.
It certainly does not.
And this brings us to the rebels of Ang's tank, the Turkana Jewel Cichlid pair. He even provides the scientific name in the log, Rubricatachromis exol.
The Turkana Jewel Cichlid is a fascinating species, and according to the post, this specific pair of fish completely rejects the logic of the new pellets.
They just won't have it.
No. They don't seem to care about the astaxanthin or the protein. They don't like the taste, or perhaps more likely the texture, or the sinking rate of these new, smaller pellets. Ang observes that they just leave them completely alone, which results in a frustrating mess of leftover pellets just floating around on the surface of the water, completely uneaten.
So the square grilled cheese sandwich has been officially rejected
Officially.
as such a specific, frustrating little domestic moment. But Ang is incredibly practical about the whole thing. He doesn't let that premium astaxanthin go to waste. He scoops those rejected floating pellets out of the Turkana Jewel Cichlid tank and passes them along to the other fish in his collection who aren't so incredibly picky about the size of their meal.
What's fascinating here is the sheer unpredictability of biology, even in the most micromanaged environments.
Yeah.
Think about a home aquarium. It is a completely controlled artificial ecosystem. The human dictates the water temperature down to the degree, the lighting schedule down to the minute, the chemical balance of the pH, and critically, the exact diet of the inhabitants.
It's a closed loop.
Exactly, a closed loop of pure human design. And yet, animal preference and natural behavior introduce this chaotic, organic variable that entirely disrupts the logical plan. Ang provided the exact same nutritional profile, but the biological organism simply hit a wall and said, "No, thank you."
That clash between strict engineered logic and stubborn, messy biology is endlessly fascinating to me, especially when you look at the person who is actually dealing with this picky fish. We really need to shift our focus from the text of the specific post to the massive sidebar and metadata of qianmeng.org.
Oh, absolutely.
Because it really begs the question, who is this hyperlogical human meticulously logging part 207 of a fish's dietary habits?
Well, when you look at the About section of the blog, Ang describes himself as an old software plumber who spends his nights tinkering with floss.
And for anyone who doesn't know, that acronym stands for Freelieber and Open Source Software. Let's unpack that old software plumber self-description because I think it reveals so much about his mindset. It implies someone who isn't just building flashy new apps for the front end, but someone who understands the deep underlying infrastructure of complex systems. He's working on the pipes, the connections, making sure the data flows where it is supposed to without leaking or breaking. And when you look at the breathtaking breadth of hobbies listed in his projects, sidebar, you see that exact same plumber mindset applied to literally every single facet of his life.
The sheer variety of that project list is stunning. On the highly technical side, he has a massive log called Notes on Haskell Programming, and he is up to part 77 on that subject alone.
Part 77.
Yeah. And for the listener who might not be familiar with computer science architecture, Haskell is a very advanced, purely functional programming language. It is known for its complex mathematics and rigorous, uncompromising logic. It is not a language for beginners. It is for people who want to build systems that are mathematically provable.
And the technical list goes far beyond just Haskell. He has notes on Elixir and Erlang programming, Python, AI, Go, Rust. He even has a multi-part series on networking, where he is actively analyzing Wi-Fi 7 MediaTek routers.
The inclusion of Erlang and Elixir is a massive clue to how his brain works. Erlang was originally built for massive telecommunication systems. Think of the foundational routing of phone calls where the system literally cannot ever go down.
It has to work.
It has to work. It is built for extreme fault tolerance. This is a person deeply entrenched in highly complex, rigorous, and theoretical computer science, where reliability and debugging are everything.
But then, right alongside those deeply technical, fault-tolerant programming logs, we see an entirely different category of interests. Interspersed with all that rigid programming logic, he has a section called Notes on Gardening.
Yeah.
And we aren't talking about a casual update or two every spring. He is on part 828 of his gardening notes. He's documenting highly specific botanical issues, like how to deal with leggy seedlings and the intricate, delicate process of bougainvillea propagation. He is tracking his dieting progress up to part 115. He has detailed notes on meditation, on playing the guitar, on home improvement. He even has separate, dedicated logs just for breeding betta fish and missing fish's spawn logs.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we're looking at the mind of a master engineer applying a rigorous open-source debugging process to organic life.
That's a great way to put it.
In software development, especially in the open-source world, the fundamental process is trial, error, documentation, and iteration. You write a piece of code, you run it, you observe exactly where it breaks, you document the bug so others can learn from it, and you try a different approach.
That structural framework completely reframes how we look at the Turkana Jewel Cichlid rejecting the food. It's not just a frustrating TET moment. It's a bug in the system.
Precisely. Whether he is optimizing a complex piece of Haskell code to run more efficiently without crashing, or he is trying to figure out why a rubricatachromosexual won't eat a newly sized red pellet, the underlying psychological process is identical. It is all troubleshooting. He approaches a leggy seedling, reaching desperately for the sun, with the exact same analytical rigor that he approaches a Wi-Fi 7 router configuration. He observes the output, notes the discrepancy from the desired result, and adjusts the input.
And he writes it all down, every single time. Which brings us to the third and perhaps most incredible part of our deep dive today, the sheer scale and philosophy of extreme documentation that this blog represents. When you look at the chronological archive provided in the sidebar of this source, the numbers are difficult to process. I really want to walk through this so you, the listener, can grasp the monumental scale of what we are looking at.
The consistency is almost unmatched in the modern internet landscape.
Now let's look at the most recent full years. In the year 2025, Aang published 730 posts.
Incredible.
In 2024, which was a leap year, he published 732 posts. In 2023, he published 730 posts. If you do the math on that, it equates to exactly 2 blog posts every single day, year after year, rain or shine. And this archive doesn't just go back a couple of years. The sidebar shows this unbroken chain of daily documentation stretching all the way back to July of 2011.
July 2011.
That is nearly 15 years of constant, unyielding personal documentation. Now, I have to ask, though, writing 2 blog posts every single day for 15 years about things like a single plant seedling or a fish pellet, isn't that bordering on an obsessive waste of time? The audience might be wondering, why not just live your life instead of stopping to log every single microsecond of it?
It is a fair question, and to an outside observer, it might look obsessive. But to understand the true motivation behind this monumental effort, we can look at another section of his sidebar titled Do Support. Here, Aang lists the organizations he actively champions and donates to. The list includes the Electronic Frontier Foundation, or the EFF, the Free Software Foundation, the FSF, the Software Freedom Conservancy, the Tor Project, and Wikipedia.
These organizations all share a very distinct, unified ethos regarding digital information.
They do. They are the absolute pillars of the open source and free information movements. The FSF and the Software Freedom Conservancy advocate for software users' freedom to study, copy, and modify code. The EFF champions civil liberties and transparency in the digital world. The Tor project works on network anonymity, and Wikipedia is, of course, the world's open encyclopedia. We are looking at this purely to understand Aang's worldview. Their core shared philosophy is that information, software, and knowledge should be fundamentally transparent, accessible, and free for anyone to use and learn from.
So when you view Aang's journaling habit through the lens of that open source ethos, the sheer volume of his posts suddenly makes basic sense. He isn't just keeping a private diary to stroke his own ego. He believes so deeply that information should be shared that he is effectively open sourcing his own life.
Exactly. He's making his life open source.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Think about the era of the internet we currently live in. It is completely dominated by algorithmic, fleeting social media. You post a quick thought, a video of your dog, a hot take on a movie, and within 24 hours, it is washed away in the algorithm. It is ephemeral content designed to hold your attention for a few seconds before disappearing forever. But Aang is doing the exact opposite. He owns his data, he controls his own domain. He is quietly, methodically building a monumental, searchable database of personal, practical knowledge. He is documenting his successes, like finally getting a bougainvillea to propagate, and his failures, like the Turkana Jewel Cichlids rejecting the new food. He is taking all that data and putting it out into the world for free, forever.
This raises an important question for all of us as consumers of information. What is the actual value of documenting the seemingly mundane? Why write down, let alone publish to the open web, the fact that a fish spat out a pellet on a Tuesday afternoon?
Right, because most people would just soup the food out, sigh, and forget the interaction happened 5 seconds later.
But to an engineer like Aang, it is a data point. And when you aggregate thousands of those seemingly mundane data points over 15 years, you build something incredibly powerful. True expertise, whether you are building fault-tolerant telecom systems in Erlang, configuring network routing, or maintaining a thriving aquatic ecosystem, is rarely built on giant sweeping epiphanies. It is built entirely on these tiny, documented micro-observations. By noting the failure of the astaxanthin pellet today, he prevents a larger failure of the tank's ecosystem tomorrow. He is creating a public manual of practical reality. It is the ultimate proof of work. Anyone can go online and say they are an expert gardener or a master aquarist. But Ang has 828 documented searchable entries proving exactly how he interacts with his plants over more than a decade.
So what does this all mean? We started this deep dive looking at a very short, highly specific post about switching to a smaller red fish pellet packed with astaxanthin. But why should you care about this? What's the takeaway for your own life when you close this tab?
That's the big question.
I think it is a powerful reminder that being well-informed isn't just about reading the front page of a major news site, doom-scrolling through global events, or knowing the macroeconomic trends of the day. True understanding comes from an intense, localized curiosity. It is about looking closely at the world directly in front of you.
Very true.
Think about how much data we give away to algorithms every single day just by scrolling on our phones. Aang is doing the complete opposite. He is taking ownership of his own daily observations, which gives him incredible power over his own attention span. Whether you are examining the chemical composition of fish food, trying to unravel the mathematical logic of a complex programming language like Haskell, or just watching how a fragile seedling responds to sunlight, taking the time to truly observe, document, and understand the small things is what builds a deep, textured understanding of the world. Aang isn't just a software plumber. He is an active, engaged, and highly deliberate observer of his own existence.
He treats his own life as an ongoing experiment worthy of rigorous documentation. And that leaves us with a fascinating concept to reflect on. I want you to imagine for a moment if someone were to compile a public daily log of every small hobby, every passing interest, and every minor troubleshooting moment in your life over the last 15 years. Every single time you fixed a leaky faucet, tried a new recipe that failed, tweaked a spreadsheet, or dealt with a stubborn pet. If all those thousands of micro-observations were laid out in a massive searchable archive, what overarching story would that data tell about how your mind works?
What a thought to end on. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the meticulously documented, endlessly curious world of qianeng.org. Keep observing, keep troubleshooting, and we will see you next time.